Welcome to the Wow MD podcast, where in each episode, you will get in 30 minutes or less valuable pearls about holistic wellness, anti-aging, hormone therapies, beauty trends, and other facts you should know about our medical healthcare system and your health that no one is telling you. My name is Dr. Mirala Chernayanu. I am a conventional board-certified OBGYN physician who, after the loss of my father due to a careless and uncaring medical team, decided to retrain and seek certification in anti-aging and restorative therapies. What I know, I am happy to share with you. Welcome to the Wow MD podcast, where I hope to wow you with things you might have not known or heard before. I wanted to talk in this podcast episode about 10 ways stress is killing us. And the title is very self-explanatory. And you know stress is bad. We all know stress is bad. If you didn't know, well, let me tell you, chronic stress accounts for billions of dollars of economic loss annually in the United States alone. And it is accepted and recognized as a major source of disability and mortality worldwide. So that's the reason why we're talking about stress today. Now, what is stress? Let's just start with a little bit of a definition. So according to the World Health Organization, stress can be defined as a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation. Obviously, stress is a natural human response that prompts us to address challenges and threats in our daily lives. Everyone experiences stress to some degree. However, the way we respond to stress makes a big difference to our overall well-being. And more on that. So again, why talk about stress? Well, because the experience of chronic psychological stress is associated with a variety of serious physical, financial, and emotional consequences, both at individual and societal levels. And according to the World Health Organization, stress has been labeled a worldwide epidemic in recognition of the magnitude of its negative effects. Also, the American Institute of Stress estimates that the effects of chronic stress cost U.S. companies over $300 billion annually. And again, it's not about how stressed you are, but it's about what you do, what you feel, what you think when you are stressed that matters, and what ultimately determines how stress will impact your body. So let me put a spin on this to make you think a little bit. Stress is not about what happens to you. It's about how you react to what happens to you. Let me give you an example. There are two people waiting for an elevator, and both are going to an interview on the 10th floor. One of them is impatient and anxious and pushing the button constantly, and all he can think about is, why is this elevator not coming faster? The other person is calm and waits. It knows that he or she has a little time until the elevator gets here, so it's mentally preparing for the interview. Think about the difference between these two people and how their state of mind is going to impact the quality and the ability to interview well. Now, let me give you another example. There's an earthquake in a doctor's office, and everybody has one of three responses. Either they scramble and run out of the building like their hair is on fire screaming, or they immediately seek shelter and cower under furniture, as they've been actually told to do, or they're calm and say, hey, let's get out of the building, we're shelter in place, whoever wants to get out of the building, follow me. Now, who do you think is going to do better in the long run faced with life challenges? Well, if the earthquake, and this is a joke, obviously, if the earthquake collapses the building, then the person who ran out of the building with the hair on fire, then that person will survive. Probably not too long, because he's probably going to die of a heart attack at some point. But most likely to live a longer life is the person who calmly said, let's find the exit or shelter in place, whatever's closest to you or you want to do, and follow me if you're going to exit the building. So that's why it's important to understand that stress is not about what happens to you. It's about how you react to what happens to you. So let me talk about today the top 10 ways that stress is bad for you and bring to your awareness how stress is actually killing us. Number one, it's causing adrenal dysfunction. If you don't know what the adrenal is, well, it's that gland that makes cortisol. If you're a mature adult, you probably know about cortisol by now. The problem with adrenal dysfunction is it's wreaking havoc with the rest of our hormones, all of them. So just a few words about adrenal dysfunction and how stress will mess with our cortisol hormone. Well, cortisol is the hormone made by our adrenal gland, if you didn't know. One of our most important stress hormones. That means that a very large amount of this hormone will be released into our bodies when you're stressed in order for our bodies to help cope with the increased metabolic demand imposed by stress. There are other stress hormones like our catecholamines, adrenaline, noradrenaline, also known as epinephrine and norepinephrine. These hormones are also produced by the adrenal gland. Hence, the adrenal gland, it's actually our stress gland. Now, it does have other effects in our bodies as well. And if you want to know more about all the hormones of the body in general, refer to my first episode, Introduction to the Body's Hormones, which was the second episode after I launched the podcast. And it's a little bit boring, but it's worthwhile listening to. Now, the cortisol effects and the adrenaline effects are very different, but they are released together because both of these hormones are meant to work synergistically to help our body react and adjust to stressors in the best optimal way. So cortisol is a very important hormone. It's one of the good to know and understand hormones. Why then does cortisol have such a bad reputation? Well, because if your cortisol is too high or too low, your body's not going to function properly or optimally. We need our cortisol to be released in just the right amount. Too much of it is very bad for the body, and not enough of it will make us feel like crap. So stress is causing major adrenal dysfunction, which will cause a lot of problems. Too much cortisol, too little cortisol leads to all kinds of issues. And if you don't know what they are, stay tuned. I'll talk more about it in the future. But adrenal dysfunction, it's bad and extremely disturbing for the body. And it will slowly lead to major problems. Number two, well, stress drives us to drinking, which initiates a cascade of very unpleasant consequences for our liver, our gut health, creating inflammation, addiction, and a bad spiral down the rabbit hole to more and more problems. I'm not here to preach about not drinking. I love wine, but I drink for pleasure, not because I'm stressed. I love wine tasting. It's quite an experience. We take our dog with us. We make a day out of it. I would personally rather do a hot yoga class when I'm stressed or walk and play with my dog. So think about why you're drinking, because that's what matters. Number three, stress causes fatigue and exhaustion. And when I say fatigue, I mean physical fatigue as well as mental fatigue. And fatigue means you likely have a hormonal imbalance or mitochondrial dysfunction or dysfunctional digestion or a combination of two or three of them or all of them. And unfortunately, the stress is the root cause for all these conditions. Just a few words about fatigue. My practice started out to be mainly about women's wellness. At the beginning, I'm an OBGYN by training. Now, I also launched my practice because I became trained in anti-aging and I wanted to do anti-aging and apply restorative techniques and technologies and achieve wellness. And that actually translates in men wellness just as well as women wellness. Now, I started seeing more men because the women I treat are so happy with their results, they actually bring their husbands in or their sons. So what I'm going to say next about fatigue applies to both men and women. I ask many of my patients, and that means probably I've asked you at some point in time, how tired are you? I get some very interesting responses, like, I do everything that needs to get done, or I think I have good energy because I keep going all day. So when I ask if you're fatigued and I get answers like that, I follow up with a question which I would like you to ask yourself today. Do you have the same energy you did 10, 15, or 20 years ago? If the answer is no, well, then something's going on. You are tired, you suffer from fatigue, but you ignore it. Almost all of us function day by day in our lives while applying the principle of mind over matter, which means we push our bodies to the extreme. We ignore fatigue. We ignore stiff joints and muscles. We ignore pain. We keep moving and doing and giving because we believe we must. The truth is, if you do not take care of yourself on a daily basis, and especially if you lack self-awareness around your body's signals, fatigue being one of them, then you will get into trouble. So having enough energy means waking up in the morning, invigorated, full of zest for life, being able to run all day long on the energy you wake up with, not feel like you need to stop and take a nap, not feel like you need a cup of coffee or an energy drink to keep you going. Every time you feel tired and you do not allow yourself the time to rest, when you feel that way, you're cutting into your healing reserves. If your energy runs out at the end of the day, when time comes for you to rest, that's perfect. And that's optimal. So stress zaps your energy. Stress will cause fatigue. And fatigue, it's a sign of many things, but most likely people that are fatigued always say, I'm under a lot of stress. Number 4, stress damages and weakens our immune system. Immune system dysfunction makes us much more prone to infections when we are in a weakened and stressed out state. Stress will cause a dysfunctional immune system, which means it is possible your immune system will fail to react properly and efficiently to protect you from an insult, like an infection, inflammation, or cancer. Or it will possibly overreact and go overboard and start killing and attacking your own cells. Now you're becoming allergic to everything around you. You might have rashes out of nowhere, and you might start making antibodies against your own tissues, which is what defines autoimmunity, and that can turn into an autoimmune illness. Number 5, stress damages our gut lining. This is very bad for us, and no one admits that they have dysfunction and digestive issues. Everyone lives with a little bit of constipation, a little bit of diarrhea, a little bit of bloating or more bloating, and a lot of heartburn sometimes. So all of these are signs and symptoms that you have a digestive dysfunction. Gut dysfunction will initiate a very unfortunate cascade of events that is going to lead to inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, and autoimmunity. I have talked about this in my previous 2 episodes about autoimmunity, the new epidemic. Please go back and have a listen. I'm not going to dwell on it here. Number 6, stress drives us to not just alcohol, but cravings for food, and sets us up for developing bad habits around bad food choices. What kind of bad foods? The kind that make us feel great quickly and immediately. Stress is what drives us to seek that immediate gratification and instant release that we get from a bar of chocolate, from a glass of wine, from a cocktail, from a bag of chips, a slice of pizza and a cold beer, a good steak and sauce with a side of fries, or a nice ice cream topped with nuts and chocolate syrup, etc. Our food addiction gets us started on the path of destruction, creating inflammation, unwanted fat deposits, fatigue, joint pain, foggy brain. The list goes on, and I have addressed this fascinating topic in a previous couple of episodes. I think the title was, Are We Addicted to Our Diet? Or How Addicted Are We to Our Foods? So please go back and listen to those if you want to know more. Number 7, stress destroys our sleep and creates chronic insomnia, which leads us down the path of physical and mental exhaustion and cognitive decline. We need sleep. Our brain needs sleep like we need water. Our brain will suffer many problems with focus and problem solving and emotional disturbances if we're not getting enough sleep. How does stress destroy our sleep? Well, through cortisol. So more about cortisol and adrenal dysfunction, I promise, will come in a future episode, but we'll focus on what we have right now. Number 8, stress is the number 1 reason we develop heart disease and hypertension, because stress creates a heightened and permanent state of inflammation, which will create oxidative stress. If you haven't heard about oxidative stress, it's a really bad thing. And it will create oxidized inflamed cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol. Cholesterol doesn't matter. You can have 300 cholesterol and live a beautiful, healthy life. It's the inflamed cholesterol. And mind you, you can measure oxidized cholesterol with a simple blood test. So stress is bad, creates oxidative stress, inflamed cholesterol, as well as a leaky endothelium, the leaky lining of the blood vessels, which will lead to plaque, will lead to stiff blood vessels, causing atherosclerosis and high blood pressure. It is well known that high levels of cortisol from the long-term stress can also increase cholesterol, triglycerides, the bad fats, blood sugar, and blood pressure. And all of these are common risk factors for heart disease. And heart disease is the number one cause of death in men and women in America and in the world. Psychological stress is a very important risk factor for cardiovascular disease, which is often overlooked. I personally think all cardiology offices should have a psychologist that automatically has to evaluate and discuss long-term stress with all cardiology patients. Maybe one day we'll see that happening. Number 9, emotional distress. Ongoing stress takes a big emotional and psychological toll on anyone. Significant evidence supports the theory that chronic stress plays a significant role in the onset of severe and impairing psychiatric conditions, including major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Stress and its resultant changes in affect are associated with an increased rate of morbidity and mortality, a higher rate of mental illness, and an increased risk of suicide. Robust evidence has linked the chronic stress experience to onset of major depressive disorder, which is unfortunately the leading cause of disability worldwide. We have more people disabled due to mental illness now than we have due to a physical ailment. Also, the onset of bipolar disorder and PTSD, both of which are associated with substantial emotional, physical, and financial burden, has been linked to chronic stress. So, number 10, last but not least, stress affects our reproductive health. It's reducing sexual desire, and it's leading to sexual dysfunction, impacting fertility for both men and women. Stress is a killer for egg quality in an older woman and can unfortunately impact negatively the blood flow, which is absolutely essential, to the ovaries and testes, and can create sex hormone decline, estrogen, low estrogen, and low testosterone, both in men and women. So it creates major hormonal imbalance related to sex hormones in both men and women. Last but not least, one extra little tidbit about stress. Let's call it number 11. If you didn't know this, you're probably going to say after I say it, you're like, oh yeah, I knew this. Stress causes accelerated aging. How? It has been linked to biological markers of aging and a shortening of the telomeres. The telomeres are the protective ends of our DNA strands. And stress will accelerate aging at the cellular level, leading to premature aging of the skin as well as the other organs. So please take stress seriously. It is important to understand the negative consequences of stress, especially when it comes to your health risks. Chronic stress is not something anyone should take lightly. So what do we do? Well, to minimize continual chronic stress exposure, you need to set priorities for what is most important to you. Focus on finding your own life-work balance. So make time for friends, for family, for fun. Ease stress and improve your mood through physical activity. Regular exercise has so many benefits. It helps lower blood pressure and combat all kinds of other cardiovascular disease risk factors like high sugar, high cholesterol, etc. Mindful meditation and deep breathing can help manage stress. I love yoga, so consider yoga. It combines movement, controlled breathing, and relaxation. It's a moving meditation. We live in a day and age when most people, 99% of people, find it hard to meditate. Life is always on the go. So who can stop and meditate? We don't. So use moving meditation. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, martial arts, any kind of activity where you need to coordinate and pay attention to your body, your breath, your movement, and your intentions, it's excellent for you. And sleep hygiene is critical in managing stress. Consider sleeping in a cool, dark, and quiet room. Never exercise close to your bedtime. Any exercise, especially vigorous exercise, will raise your cortisol. So it's not good to do that after 5 p.m. Avoid eating and drinking in the hours before bedtime, especially alcohol and fatty foods or very sugary foods. If you experience unending stress or severe symptoms of anxiety or depression, talk to someone about getting help. And to kind of end on a positive note, try to apply the silver lining principle. Adopt a positive attitude towards life. This will allow you to better cope with any kinds of stress that comes away. Consider the fact that we always have a choice. No matter what happens to us, we have a choice. The choice is to look at what happened to us, cup half full or cup half empty. Face life challenges with some degree of serenity, and that might help improve your perception of stress and result in a much better quality of life and better health. So be aware, stress is a killer. It's recognized by all our major regulatory entities as being a problem. And unfortunately, there is no cure for stress, except for all the things I just mentioned. The way you feel when you stress, it's going to be unique to you. So the way to resolve how you feel, it's going to be unique to you. So seek help, talk to someone, and look at the upside of things. Find the upside always. Thank you for trusting me with your time, and thank you for listening to today's episode. If the content I provided wowed you, was helpful and valuable to either you or someone close to you, please do me a favor and leave me a review. I am very open and welcome any kind of feedback as well as suggestions on any content ideas. So please forward those suggestions to Jessica, my patient care coordinator, through our website, herabeautyandwellness.com. And I look forward to our time together next episode.